Welcome to the Humanity Mosaic podcast, exploring authenticity and connection with Dr. E. Thank you for joining us today as we explore issues that affect our relationships in today's world. And now welcome to today's episode with Dr. E.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you, as always. I hope that you have discovered the Humanity Mosaic podcast and that you're enjoying it. And if you are, I have a wonderful, delightful treat for you today. I have the amazing Catherine Bell of the Awakened Company with us today. And what I want you to know about Catherine before she shows up is that this is a woman who is so inspirational that just being in her presence, you feel empowered and like you want to do more in the world. Catherine has been talking to leaders and working in organizations, utilizing the Enneagram all around the world. And she is just a force to be reckoned with. When I first met Catherine, one of the things that I loved so much about just being in her presence was that you can't be in a space with this powerful woman without knowing that she's there. There's something about the energy that she radiates, and we'll be talking about that more during the podcast, but there's just a feeling of, wow, I'm standing in a room with someone who knows how to get stuff done, who knows how to make things happen. Let me read a little bit about what she's done out in the world. Catherine loves helping leaders, relationships, teams, and organizations, making them thrive. She is the CEO and founder of the Awakened Company. She helps organizations create healthy culture and to do more to make the culture align with the people and the organization and the mission and the values of the people that they're actually serving. Catherine is just a phenomenal executive coach. She has done executive coaching for many, many years, and she is, well, to be honest, she has a waiting list of people who would like for her to coach them. She's award-winning Profit 500 founder, a serial entrepreneur, and a best-selling author. With that, without delaying anymore, I'm going to ask Catherine Bell to join us.
Hello.
Hello, my friend. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Well, you know, I'm always happy to be with you. That's how we roll.
That's true. Thank you so much for having me, Deborah. And thank you to your team also, who's making this happen with us. So I just want to acknowledge the invisible as well. And to all the people who are listening, thank you for being here. And Dr. E, thank you for being the impetus to making this happen.
Well, you know, this needed to happen because so many people out in the world really don't know how powerful the Enneagram can be when we're doing work in organizations. And people are beginning to catch on to that. You know, we've both done a lot of work in organizations, but I thought by bringing you on the podcast, we could really kind of take a deeper dive into explaining how we even get through the door when we're trying to bring this work to an organization. So, Catherine, I'd love for you to start right there. How do you get through the door of an organization?
What a brilliant question. First and foremost, the door has to be opened. So I believe that organizations are forces for good. And coming from that place, most people say, yeah, you know, organizations are forces for good. And then I provide some data. And then this data opens the door and opens the door and opens the door. So here's the data. Did you know that self-awareness is directly correlated to high performance as a leader? And often people will say, you know what? No, I did not know that. And then I ask the question, and can you guess what percentage of leaders are self-aware? And Deborah, it's only 10 to 15% according to HBR. So then that like opens the door wide open because people are like, oh my goodness, tell me more. Tell me more. So the Awakened Company, which kind of it's represented in a drop in the ocean. And the first drop is awakening ourselves. The next drop is awakening our relationships, our teams, our organizations, our world. But first it begins with leadership. And most leaders are not self-aware. So the Enneagram is then the portal for us to help leaders to become more self-aware and to take that next step, to not come from automatic. So this whole notion of awakening leadership, it begins with most leaders don't even know that there's a correlation between self-awareness and performance as leaders. And then also that only 10 to 15% of leaders are self-aware. And then when I ask most leaders, I'm like, have you actually been trained? And I'm working with some of the largest organizations in the world. I'm like, you know, you've been promoted and you keep on getting promoted, but have you actually been trained in leadership? And the majority are like, no. And leadership can be taught. It's not rocket science.
I agree with you so much because this happens all the time. We go into organizations and I will ask this question. I will say, have you been trained to be able to, really lead a team of people? Or I'll ask about the promotions, and I will constantly get the response that people were basically promoted because they were good at what they do. Whatever their job happens to be, they got promoted, sort of through the ranks based on the reality that they were a high performer. But then they didn't learn anything about really leading a team or interacting with other individuals on the team, building a strong team. And of course, that's where we come in. That's when we enter the door. So I'm curious about this because when I go in, I work with the leadership team and I work with some of the people at the lowest level of the organization in order to keep people from feeling marginalized and disenfranchised. This is just for the leadership team. And of course, there's always the reality that we'd like to take what we do and actually activate it throughout the organization. Do you have a way that you begin your work with organizations? And then how do you sort of build on that? What do you do with it? How do you get it more widely disseminated throughout the organization?
What a great question, Deborah. The word leader is very, very, very important. And let me tell you why it's so important. It is so important because it affects everything we perceive. And here's a research study. So I'm big into business research. And in fact, business research is being done extensively on the Awakened Company right now, which is very, very exciting. So here's what the study showed. There are two groups of people. They're equally social demographically, and they're put into boardrooms. One group of people are told they're leaders. Another group of people are told they're followers. The researchers then mocked an emergency. And they looked at how people behaved in the leaders group and the followers group. And those that were labeled leaders, the leaders group excelled. They did really well during this mock emergency. Those that were kind of Post-it notes with followers, they fell apart. So philosophically, being labeled a follower is like an F word, really. We must empower everybody to believe that they are leaders. We all have things to learn. Everybody does. I don't know anybody who doesn't. And we are all leaders. So how can we be leaders in terms of ourself, our relationships, and then also really pay attention to context in how we lead? And that can be taught throughout the organization. And what's also interesting about leadership, I'm a Dr. Julian Barling, who's one of the top 5 leadership researchers in the world, has had a profound impact on my life. And he's taught me the transformational leadership model. And everybody can become a transformational leadership when they know what the attributes are of leadership. And I'm now going, and my thinking around leadership is we need to teach people how to be in their bodies, the senses, to help us be stronger, more vulnerable, more real leaders. So I believe leadership can be taught. Leadership can be taught at any point in an organization. And I do believe everybody should be taught leadership.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's the invitation.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting though is we haven't been trained that way. So we're deconstructing the narrative around what is actual leadership, and it's such a kind of a great time to be doing so.
It really is. Talk about, knocking on the door and opening it and entering at the right time. This is ideal because we're looking at so many shifts that are happening. And as much as it can be challenging to do this work in organizations, the reality is if the leader doesn't wake up in terms of the organization, the people who sit at the very top, it's very difficult to empower the rest of the organization to understand that each individual is a leader and that we do lead in our own way. This takes me back to, I don't know if you've seen the interview that Jane Elliott did years ago. It's called Brown Eyes, Blue Eyes. And it's very much about what happens when you tell people that they have certain limitations, and you identify them in that way. But we have to do more in the world of work because we're all in the world of work in some way, shape, or form. So we can't not enter organizations. So you and I very much take the Enneagram as that wonderful, I don't even like to call it a tool because I think that's almost disrespectful. But the Enneagram is just such a beautiful map to lead you to self-awareness, to lead you to discovering your authentic self. And the only way that we can really empower everyone to find the leader within is to lead them to discovering their authentic self. So how do you get, say, that leadership team, when you wake them up, what does that look like? Right at the very beginning, what does it look like when you begin the work?
First of all, I would say they wake themselves up, which is interesting. They wake themselves up. And Deborah, before I answer, I just want to give a shout out to you and say thank you to you in terms of being an Enneagram thought leader, in terms of your books, in terms of your leadership at the IEA. I think it's very important. I just want to acknowledge you. So let's talk about, I'll talk about working with a team of engineers I worked with last week. I'm one of two women in the room. And at first it kind of became like this, like arms crossed. The room had the slight ambiance of being maybe a little bit of ice in the air, a little bit of like, what are we doing? And the way most of my work comes through word of mouth. And as you know, I have lineups of people waiting. So anyway, so ice in the air. We're around kind of a very mahogany based boardroom table. Very well-trained team, very smart team. And I just started giving the data that we talked about. And then I talked about the importance of self-awareness and the Enneagram really as a strategic map, as a portal to enter into, to discover our relationship with each Enneagram type, the pluses, the minuses, what our Enneagram DNAs are, what our team DNAs are, what point we kind of see our greatest gifts and our greatest weaknesses on. And really the team, the ambiance in the room became very warm and friendly, and they were doing a lot of self-discovery, and they revealed their own gems through the process. And the feedback from the team was just outstanding. However, it was because they were open. This open versus closed mindset is very important. Carol Dweck's research, that having the growth mindset, and this team showed up with the growth mindset and stepped in. So the room went from being cold to really smelling more like an open field and being warm and full of sunlight and bright yellow tulips. And the energy completely shifted because they walked in. And now we're carrying on the process together. And it was also me working on my own stuff of thinking, oh my goodness, am I going to be rejected? Like, am I going to be rejected in this? Keep in mind, I've been doing this work for a long, long time. And in 2008, when I was doing mindfulness in organizations, I'd go in and I'd be sweating because I'm like, oh my goodness, is this, right? Like, but I had this innate sense that this is the way forward. And the Enneagram is such a portal to this whole addressing how do we become more self-aware. However, the self-awareness, it's one thing, Deborah, for us to become self-aware, which is super, super important, but we must be relationship as well, aware as leaders. And that's something that our course that we did really addressed. So if people haven't seen our video on demand with Deborah and I'd really suggest that you check out the video on demand. It's very, very, very important because as leaders, we need to have internal awareness and then relational awareness. And then here's where things are changing for me: contextual awareness and body awareness. Yes. These dimensions and flavors of leadership, it's a huge dance. Like the Enneagram, it's a portal. But first we need to know, and most people don't even know, Deborah.
It's so true. Yeah, it really is such deep and intentional work. And one of the things that is sometimes challenging for me, and I'm curious if you find the same thing, I no longer am willing to work with organizations that are just trying to sort of check the box to say that they're doing something to change the culture, but they really won't do the work. And much like my work does not come through marketing, it comes from word of mouth. So I'll get a recommendation from someone and I'll get a call, and then I'll go in and meet with the CEO and the team. And sometimes just from not just the vibe in the room, but the questions that are being asked at that point in time, it's like something, the bells go off in my head. I'm seeing these red flags that are saying, no, 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 no. This is not, it's more of a lecture. I'm being given a lecture about all the ways that they want me to come in and fix those people, but they don't want to do any work as a leadership team. Have you run into that?
Yes. And what I run into a lot is, hey, Kath, can you help me go from $0 to $1 billion like you did that company over there? And to me, that's not the right impetus. That's not the right motivation, especially when we know the business research, we need to focus 2/3 on culture, 1/3 on finances. And I see the culture as the divine feminine and the finances as the divine masculine. So to me, when the motivation is simply to make more money, we don't need more productivity, in my opinion, right now. We don't need more burning up the planet. We need organizations, and I perceive organizations are the only way we're going to solve the crises of our time. And by organizing differently is a huge motivation for me. So when people just speak about the finances, that really, I don't have time.
Yeah, that's a red flag.
Mm-hmm. It's a red flag. I just don't have time. And we can't just talk about culture without also knowing that we need resources to be able to actualize. what we want to create. So we need that divine feminine and divine masculine together to actualize organizations into their full potential.
I love that you are using this language, because it is the divine feminine and the divine masculine that comes together to create a whole healthy organization. And for so long, the divine feminine energy has been ignored or pushed back in organizations, because that's not how it was seen to be able to make the company really become robust and successful and all of those things. And we know just the opposite of that is true. And here we are in, the 21st century. We're looking at all the things that are going on in the world around us. And the divine feminine energy, when recognized and allowed to ascend into the place where it is most needed, which is in the culture of an organization, which is in the nurturing and the caring for how people are treated. And it is in so many ways the mechanism that allows people to feel rewarded or to feel whole, like they are really able to bring their whole self to work and that they have landed in their purpose. That comes out of the divine feminine energy. But we meet so much resistance to that. And we have to really be prepared to work with that resistance. Do you have some techniques that you use that helps you when, the workplace is full of the male, achiever, challenger, get it done, don't worry about those people. If it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. What are some of the techniques that you have found at breaking through, getting particularly the leadership team to understand how important it is to let women lead like women and to let men embrace the divine feminine energy within them to make a stronger, healthier culture?
Mm-hmm. What a great question, Deborah. When I'm uncomfortable, I must go in. So when I'm uncomfortable, an invitation is when I'm uncomfortable, I must step into that discomfort myself. And when I'm uncomfortable, I must use my voice to be of service to the divine feminine and divine masculine, and not just brush off maybe comments that, I could brush off. No, to go in and to communicate is super, super important. The other, many things that I do is the creation of holding. And what do I mean by that? To be in silence actually myself and really listen. And in that, it's a model for how other people can be. The other thing is I believe in play. And when we play, so on the boardrooms, I bring Play-Doh. And there's typically never not the Play-Doh opened. I don't bring it for any other purpose than for people to just play with. To create more. This is fun. This is joy. We never get these moments back. So in many ways, I try to go into my own discomfort, this holding and a sense of play. And in the play, it elevates everybody. And then the sense of possibilities start to pop through. And I believe people are, what I'm noticing in organizations and just the demand for the Awaken Company book, and also the fact that the book, The Awaken Company, was re-released in 2022 because Namaste felt it was more needed for this time than when it was published ahead of its time in 2015. So really the sense of play, the sense of going into my own discomfort, and also the sense of holding. And holding's underestimated in our world, yet the context is always holding us. Earth is always holding us. And so that to me, brings this whole sense of the balance between the divine feminine and masculine. We need it. We need both. And also when I do that, I notice that people open up in different ways. When I'm the model, when I get vulnerable, when I go into my own discomfort and communicate from that place, it opens that up in the other leaders. And also trust, which is a 0.6 thing, but trust makes everything go faster. And so for example, that boardroom that I described, where I went from ice cold to warm and full of golden tulips and golden flowers, it's because I could have gone with, oh my goodness, they're going to reject me. And I could have gone, negatively, but I trusted that this was just going to be an amazing experience for them and an amazing experience for me. And in that, it shifted the whole field.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I hear you saying is, in order to do any of this work with anyone, you have to have your own self-awareness, intact. You have to, I'll often tell people it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to take someone on a journey that you haven't gone on yourself. And when we go into these organizations, if we are not grounded, if we have not done our own inner work, if we're not aware of our triggers and things that could derail the very processes that we're trying to bring into an organization, it just doesn't go well. So, it does begin with us as individuals who are going in to try and bring something to an organization that they can grow, that's organic and that they can grow it from what we give. And I'm curious, Catherine, do you have a favorite type of organization to work with?
That's a great question. So recently, I was working with an executive. No, actually, it wasn't an executive team. It was it was an international team, brought the entire team in from all around the world to do this work. And this client made the whole thing an experience for everybody on the team and treated everybody on the team as a unique, special person. So there was private film festival, there was a private culinary experience for the entire team, international team, everybody. And then we did leadership and the Enneagram for the entire team. And the fact that it was made to be an experience that these people will remember forever, they're my favorite clients because it's embedded with presence. It's embedded with thoughtfulness and creativity and what would the team want and what would the impact for the entire team. There was openness, curiosity, generosity, love, wisdom, and action in everything that they did. So I love working with clients that want to make it an experience. And I love working with leaders who really care and who believe that they can make an impact and are willing to do the work. And one special spice that I think everybody should be aware of is knowing what your special spice is. So for example, I've built organizations and I've made so many mistakes as a leader. And I have the privilege of sharing all my screw ups with people so that they don't make the mistakes that I made. So I think everybody has their special je ne sais quoi, which means I don't know what. There's spice that they can offer the world. So I think it's also incumbent upon us to know what our special spice is. And work with those clients where we can add our special spice.
The world just needs a lot more of your special spice. As I see us going into the future and preparing organizations and leaders, empowering individuals to recognize the leader within, we really need more Catherine Bells out in the world. And I'm just thrilled and delighted that you would come and share your special spice and your wonderful, amazing experiences with us. Thank you, Catherine.
Deborah, it's been such a great honor and a privilege, and we need more Deborahs, Dr. E's in the world taking their place. It's so, so, so important. And your books have had a tremendous positive impact on me. As you know, one of my spiritual book clubs, your book is our book that we're working with. And we need more Deborah. So thank you so much. And I'm so excited also that our courses are going to get out into the world more. So very, very awesome.
And more to come, always.
And more to come, always.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, too.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Humanity Mosaic Podcast with Dr. E. For more information, please visit DeborahEgerton.com and be sure to check out theAuthenticSelfCommunity.com to continue your journey.